Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well. I am in Seattle today and really this week playing with Chris Botti at the Jazz Alley. We just finished a show in Santa Cruz, and last week we were at SF Jazz all week, and before that I played on a bunch of Chris's dates for his iconic holiday residency at the Blue Note, so that was a lot of fun. But anyway, today I wanted to get into some exercises that I think are really helpful to practice. We're calling this video Stop Practicing Scales for Better Jazz Phrases. And the reason for that is, a lot of times people get into the rut of just practicing scale exercises for their whole life, even, because that's one of the first things that we learn to do when we're, learning our instrument. And there are a lot of great scale exercises, and, it's definitely an important thing to practice. But if you corner yourself into just practicing the same stuff for weeks, months, years on end, you're not really going to get anywhere with it. And a lot of times people will be really focused on asking questions, I find, about application. And that's great because there are, definitely some really great ways to practice application in jazz and in your practicing. But for the most part, what's more important than the application is actually just getting down the exercises or the concepts themselves. And a lot of times when you actually truly get down the exercise and you memorize it and you take it through all the keys, you're probably not going to be asking that question anymore because it's going to start naturally coming out into your playing. It's just in the beginning, it's sort of easy to take a step back and be like, wait, but where is this going? But if you trust in the process and you just do it, you're really going to find that you'll benefit. And so with that in mind, let's get into a few exercises that I think are really great. Again, practicing scales are awesome, but when we improvise in jazz, we're not necessarily improvising like this. That doesn't really sound like a jazz phrase, A jazz phrase is going to sound a lot more like this. And so what happens there is we have all these different shapes and we have all this melodic chromaticism. And so in order to get better at that sort of thing, you're not going to be able to get that just through practicing scales diatonically. So this week in the Jazz Gym, the theme of the week is actually melodic chromaticism. So I wanted to show you guys a few of the exercises that we're doing in the Jazz Gym. The Jazz Gym is really cool. We started a few months ago, and I've actually been loving it for myself because I use it every day just to practice myself. Pretty much what it is it's like a gym for fitness, except it's for practicing. They're essentially guided coaching sessions. So I'm one of the coaches, and we have a few other coaches or jazz gym trainers, we call them. And what it is there are these live sessions. There are 5 every single day. So, whenever it's a good time for you to be practicing, you can jump into a session. With the unlimited membership, you can come literally as much as you want. You could even come multiple times a day. Most people use it for just once a day, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. And what it is that, it's a guided coaching session. So, you'll be there on Zoom with a community of people. And it's really awesome, actually, just like the accountability of, kind of scheduling it into your day and showing up and seeing everybody there. And everybody sort of practices with their audio on mute, of course. And then you've got the coach there who's sort of explaining everything that you practiced that day, and they guide you through it. And if you want to see them privately, you can do that in the trainer's room. We create breakout rooms so you can, work through anything that you might be having trouble with. And then there's also, the communal Q&A that happens through the chat, during the session. So, without any further ado, let's jump into these exercises. So one of the exercises that we did in the jazz gym this week, and I've been joining it from the road, which has been fun, is an approach note exercise. And so what we do is we add approach notes into each degree of the scale. So it sounds like this, and I'll explain what it is after. So what's happening there is we play a few diatonic notes. We go 1, 2, 3, and then we connect down into the next note chromatically. So we add some melodic chromaticism there. Then we continue that shape throughout the scale. But there are going to be two places where we connect chromatically into the next note by dipping below it, because there won't be any room in between the note. So what I mean by that is that, in between the third and the second degrees, like what we just did, we had a note in between. Between the third and second degree of the major scale, you have a half step in between that you can stick in there. But between, for instance, the fourth and the third, which is what we're going to do next, there's no room in between. So what you do is you dip below to the chromatic note below. Then you continue that idea. Then you dip below again. When you go descending, and of course you can do these full range. When you go descending, same idea, you just turn around the diatonic part of it, so you're going down a couple notes instead of going up a couple notes. So that's a really great exercise for just adding one melodic chromaticism, approach note into it, one chromatic approach note, I should say. From there, if you want to do an enclosure exercise, another exercise that we did this week was a great enclosure exercise that just like jam packs a ton of enclosures into there. Enclosures are when you add chromatic approach notes that wrap around the note. So the way this exercise works, it kind of functions by wrapping around these notes. So we've got 3, 1, 4, 2, 5, 3, 6, 4, etc., etc. And what we do is we connect those notes through enclosures. So with all of these enclosures, they're 3-note enclosures. Sounds like this. Great exercise, and it's really good for just jam packing in a lot of chromaticism into there. You might not always play with that much melodic chromaticism when you're building your jazz lines, but it's great to be practicing like that, just so those mechanics are sort of available to you. Again, with the application of this stuff, just a reminder, like, you can understand how it works, awesome. You can play it in one key, awesome. You can read it in one key, awesome. But the most important thing here is memorization. So that's a big part of what we're drilling in the jazz jam. It's just getting this stuff memorized, talking about ways to memorize it. And the first step is you gotta set aside the time to do it. Then you're gonna experience the benefits from it. The last thing that we'll go over today, in another exercise that we did this week, is just applying this idea to an actual set of chord changes. So, for instance, if you were to do 3-note enclosures into a blues, for instance, there are a lot of different ways to play a blues, but, one of the stock ways of, playing on a blues and jazz is, gonna be, what I do now, as far as the chord changes that I choose, and you'll see that. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna play 3-note enclosures into the root on a blues. You can also do this into the third, into the fifth, into the seventh. That's something that we've been practicing in the jazz jam. And so, this is a nice way of applying this, idea into a standard. You can start by just doing the enclosures into the root, so that's what I'll do first. Then from there, you can actually practice adding to the line. So maybe add some diatonic material. In other words, add some notes from the chord scales, and just play diatonically. Just play inside the scale that that pairs as the home base of that chord after playing that enclosure. So that'd be like. And then you can hear it's starting to sound more like even a real solo. But this stuff is, of course, just exercises. But they're exercises that make you better. They're exercises that make you better and allow you to play better solos. So again, the most important thing to do with this stuff is just to set aside the time, make it happen, start to memorize it, which, there are a lot of great tricks for that, stuff that we talk about in the jazz gym, but at the end of the day, you got to set aside the time and get as much repetition as you can, playing this stuff. So anyway, would love to work with you guys over in the jazz gym if you want to get into this type of material more together. But otherwise, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope you learned something. Make sure to check out my website for tour dates. And also, there's, I haven't mentioned this before, but there's a great, I guess it's like an app slash website where you can follow me. It's called Bands in Town, and it's a great way of seeing where I'm playing. And you'll actually get notifications for when I'm going to be coming through your area. Since the pandemic, now that I'm touring again, we're seeing, something that we used to see a lot in the past, which is, I'll play a city and then I'll play like Chicago, and a couple weeks later we'll be getting comments like, hey, when are you playing Chicago? And it's like, oh, we were just there. So, just make sure to follow me over on Bands in Town, because that's a great way to make sure that you won't miss it, because we'd love to see you guys out here on the road. So thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.